Good morning, everyone. As she said, my name is Rama Oruganti. I'm the Chief Product Officer for RealWear. And the lights are a bit blinding, but I'll get used to them. Happy to see some familiar faces. I know it's a bad time to be presenting right before lunch, but I'll try to be pithy here. Let me start off with what RealWear is, so you get some context. Here's a video, but I'll just skip it over. This was supposed to be filler, so I'll just get it to the main slide. RealWear is the world's leader in assisted reality wearable products. And our whole aim is to engage, elevate, and empower industrial frontline workers. So that's what we do. So today, I'm going to talk about the problems at the industrial front lines, what are good solutions for industrial front lines, how we believe assisted reality is that solution that we have seen in the market that has been working really well. And then I'll get into a little bit about RealWear and what demos we have on the floor in a second. So maybe let's start with the problems at the industrial front lines. There are four main problems. The first one is technical complexity is rising a lot. What does that mean? Imagine back 30 years to a technician at a dealer looking at an engine trying to fix a car. And compare that to today. A lot more electronics, a lot more sensors, a lot more information they need to know. Now, as we are moving more towards EVs, it has become even more complex. So now everything you learned about engines and cars and two-stroke engines and all that kind of stuff is completely out the window. Now you're completely new about batteries and other kinds of things that you really need to be an expert on. So tech complexity is rising. But on the other hand, skilled workers are going down. They are in much shorter supply now. What's happening is people are retiring. You don't really have that full funnel of apprentices who have been learning the tricks of the trade for the last decade coming into the workforce. So as this happens, you start losing tribal knowledge. So the competitive advantage that made your company the company is starting to get lost. So how do you get all that knowledge and preserve it? That's the other challenge in the industrial front lines. The third one is the information that's being generated at the field and the information that is expected to be uploaded onto some remote server or to some system is increasing in complexity all the time. But that doesn't mean that what people were doing in the past has gone away. So many times it's a question of adding more work rather than reducing it. So the systems seem like they help, but sometimes they're doing notes, they're doing this and that, and then they're also doing all the complicated systems that they have to do, and all this information is just washing over them. And then finally, it's safety and situational awareness, which is critical in industrial front lines. So these are the four problems. And I'll ask you to imagine what-if scenario. So what if, for the technical complexity, you could get the right information, the right expert help when you really needed it, rather than having to figure it out all by yourself? What if, instead of skilled workers having to drive for 2 hours to do something that would take them 10 minutes, they could sit at their location and help somebody somewhere else as a remote expert? That would save hours of wasted time of the most valuable resource the company has, which is a skilled worker. Then the other thing you could do is automated up-leveling. So just going back for a second, if you think about somebody getting trained up, instead of having to have an expert teach them all the steps, what if the training was hands-on? It was when you were doing your work, and it provides information and trains you up according to your ability. What if, on the information generated and consumed side, you have a simple, intuitive UX? You have what we call assisted intelligence. What that means is the ability to capture, create, and consume information contextually. So the data has to be contextual. Data is something that is meaningful to you in that situation. If that can be done automatically, that reduces the information overload you're having. And then finally, on the safety and situational awareness side, can you help the frontline worker? What if you can help the frontline worker maintain cognitive and physical focus on the task? A lot of times, it's a lot of information coming in, and also your hands are tied up if you're holding a phone or a tablet. Can you have them be hands-free? Can you make sure that information is not overlaid on top of their actual reality? And can you make sure that their brain is not loaded with unnecessary information and that they are actually focused on the task at hand? For all this, I strongly believe, and our company believes, that assisted reality is the solution. And some of you may be familiar with it, some of you maybe not so much. So I'll describe it a little bit. What is assisted reality? think of reality, which is where we are right now, right? Looking at each other, interacting in the real world. The other extreme is virtual reality, where you are wearing something on your head. You're completely immersed in the digital world. In between those two is where assisted reality comes in. Assisted reality is right next to reality, where information is snacked. So I'll show you a graphic here. Assisted reality with a small a right next to reality, whereas AR and mixed reality is putting digital information on top of what you're seeing in the real world. Whereas assisted reality is not putting it in your line of sight, it's putting it right below. The way to think about it is, if you're a fighter pilot and your heads-up display is seeing all this information, that's kind of like mixed reality on the extreme end. But you're still seeing outside the window. But the way we look at assisted reality is like looking at the dashboard of a car. You have information there and a bunch of information, but you only snack on it. It's not a buffet. You're just looking at it when you need to, and then you look back at where your focus needs to be. That's where RealWear plays. So some of the points I already made. It's not mixed. It's not immersive. It's hands-free. Only essential on-demand information needs to be there because you're not looking at it all the time. When you look at it, it needs to know what you're doing and give you information that is contextual. And then it's Industry 4.0 ready for frontline workers today, right now. OK, moving on. Before I get into too much about RealWear, let me just talk about how big this opportunity is overall and how big the problem is. There are about 1 billion frontline workers out there, out of which about 100 million are industrial frontline workers, and a subset of them are in explosive environments. It's a big opportunity. So think of somebody like Colgate-Palmolive making toothpaste. Toothpaste may not seem like a very expensive product. You might think that downtime is more expensive for somebody like an ExxonMobil or somebody like that who has big oil and gas rig. If it goes down, it's millions of dollars a day. But it's also just as true for somebody like Colgate-Palmolive because they are making millions and millions of these toothpastes every year. And any hour of downtime goes into tens of thousands of dollars. So it's a very important problem that people are facing every day right now. So what does RealWear do? RealWear has been around for about 6 years now. We are the industry standard, the gold standard for industrial XR. So the product is something like this. You see it on the image as well. You wear it on your head. And we have demos in the booth. You can touch and feel it there. Major blue chip companies have adopted us. I think that's an important thing to remember and understand because there's a lot of technology out there. But it's been years of working in the industry, learning from our mistakes. We've been able to get to a product that's really actually deployed. It's not just stuck in POC hell, as somebody called it recently. We have about 65,000 shipped. We are purpose-built. And we call it a full-stack solution. So you see a piece of hardware here. But you might be surprised to know we have more software engineers than hardware engineers. And what they do is make this platform really work. So if you think about our full-stack solution, we have hardware. On top of it, we have software, which has a couple of elements. One is what we call Wear HF, which is how voice gets recognized. This whole thing is completely voice-enabled, no touch involved. You see the display right in front of you, and you just talk to it. There is no wake-up word. You just keep talking to it, and whatever is the instruction on this, if you pattern match that, then it does the action. So we have Wear HF that recognizes your voice, Wear ML that actually does the action. So that's the base layer of the platform. And then on top of it, we have third-party software that really makes the experience. Third-party software like Zoom or Teams or LibreStream. These are the guys who really make the experience for the frontline worker, depending on the use case. And then on top, we have RealWear Cloud. It started off as managing individual devices. Now we're getting into more apps and app-level stuff, knowing how long the device was used, getting more into manageability of a fleet, doing remote diagnostics, and so on. So a lot of things there. Each one is helping a different customer. So one customer is a frontline worker, making sure it's comfortable to wear all day long. The other side is making sure it's easily deployable and manageable at industry scale. Usually, companies focus on one or the other, and that's where the problems arise. So we are looking at the full stack that really enables us to drive change in this market. Now, the proof is in the pudding, right? So 41 companies, 41 Fortune 100 companies have deployed us, 65,000 devices. Many of them in the hundreds, a few of them in the thousands of devices actually deployed in the field. And that's why we believe that assisted reality is the right solution for these problems that I talked about earlier. The key industries we play in, many industries, but I'll focus on a few: automotive, oil and gas, food and beverage, manufacturing, transportation, logistics. These are the big verticals for us. Now, thinking about specifically, let's think about the use cases specifically. So a few things. So out of the box, we have what's called a document navigator. Think of it like you're working on a complicated piece of equipment, and you want to look at the schematic. So you can pull up the schematic, zoom in, move your head around, get to the right place in the document, freeze it, and then it's like a document that has the exact schematic you're trying to fix right in front of your eyes. So then it's like helping you while you're doing your task. Visual Assist is using the camera to use it as a flashlight, zoom in, and be able to see something close up. So these are the basic things out of the box, but the real solutions are coming from the third party. Things like remote expert guidance, where somebody remotely is able to see what you're seeing, able to help you fix a problem, able to annotate on things in the real world, so you can see, like, cut this wire, not this wire, put an X, put a check mark, and so on. Then the other thing is digital workflow. Digital workflow is step-by-step instructions going, do this first, do this next, do this next. This is helpful for training purposes sometimes. The other side of it is more where industries like pharma, for example, where you need regulatory proof of somebody did step one, they did it, step two, they did it, they took a picture of it. So for regulatory or compliance reasons, that's the other reason why you do digital workflow. And then finally, IoT data visualization, where you can see information from a digital twin, for example, or from sensor data overlaid on the image on the screen on physical assets. So these are the three big use cases that are enabled by assisted reality type of solutions. So I talked about the 4 problems, and these are the 4 solutions. We strongly believe that assisted reality, especially RealWear solution, and it fixes all of these problems. And today, at this demo, we are at AWE, what we're primarily talking about is this concept, our vision around assisted intelligence. And what assisted intelligence really means, again, just to repeat, is how somebody can create, capture, and consume contextual data, the main thing being contextual data. So to showcase that, we have a couple of partners here at our booth at 812. One is IBM, showing Inspector Wearable. And the way that works is, for an automotive use case, a frontline worker can real-time look at a piece of equipment, let's say a wheel, and real-time get information back saying which ones have manufacturing defects. So this is using machine learning, computer vision, but it is helping the worker. You're not replacing the worker. The worker is the one who's looking at that information, getting help from AI and ML, the latest in technologies, but it's in a very simple, intuitive UX. You look at it, you see all the problems, and then you fix it, you say yes or no, and then it also captures that as a physical record. Then that goes back into the system of record. So there's, again, this complexity of tying it to back-end systems, without which things don't work. The other partner here is Transition Tech. Transition Technologies is showcasing the ability to put digital overlays on physical objects. For example, that speaker over there, if there was actually a pressure gauge, for example, you could put a tag on it, and then it would stay in place even as you move around. But it's not a hologram in front of you. It's on the screen over here, but what we call 2.5D. So as you move your head around, you don't need a fancy 3D camera or anything like that. It's just a normal 48-megapixel 2D camera. But using very clever technology in there, our partner is able to track it in real time. And you can then, on that digital overlay, on that physical asset, you can put in information like pressure data, who did work on this in the past, instructions for how to fix it, any kind of data. So it's very useful data for you in context. So as you walk up to a piece of equipment, you know what happened to it, for example, or if you need a pressure reading, you don't have to lean behind the thing to see the little thing in the darkness. So a lot of useful things that come out of doing physical tagging with digital overlays. And then LibreStream, a great, phenomenal software partner who enables more of remote mentor use case. So it is more for bandwidth-challenged use cases where they have really, really rich set of tools to help you do that. All these demos are there in booth 812. I would really encourage you to go check it out. My information is here as well. Reach out to us. Happy to answer any questions. But since I have a couple more minutes here, let me jump into show you a quick video of our latest and greatest product. It's called RealWear Navigator 500. I have it here with me. This was launched late last year. It took all the learnings we had from our previous generation products and boiled it into this. This is just as rugged as the previous generation, a third as light. It has a phenomenal camera, a great display, a fingerprint sensor, amazing battery, all kinds of things, and just as rugged. So I'll just drop it here. I'm not even looking at it, right? So this is meant for the industrial use case. It's not a fragile piece of glass that you put on your head. So let me just run through a quick video because we didn't really talk about the product. Let me see. Does it work? One more. There you go. All right, we have a few minutes for questions if anybody has any. Happy to answer, or feel free to reach out back to us. I put my LinkedIn before. We are also at booth 812 in Hall B. Any questions, or is everybody itching to go to lunch? All right, since no questions, let's wrap it up here. Looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you.